Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I've been happily teaching 2007. I teach all over the Bay Area, and I'm so very happy to be here with you folks today this morning. Thank you for giving a portion of your Saturday morning to come and talk about a subject I think is important. That's water-wise work. Please, I don't stand on any formalities, so if you have any questions, ask them. All questions. So, it also helps. So we're gonna look at pretty pictures, and we're gonna go ahead and talk about what's sustainable water-wise gardening is. Basically, it's about increasing your soil's ability to water, maximize the water that you use or the water that you get by capturing water, recycling water on your site, using things like technologies. I'm talking about drip irrigation in order to maximize the amount of water that is used on your site as well. And then it's also about finding plants that have a tendency to do more sipping of water than they do full water. Usually those land in the range of generally California natives or drought tolerant plants that are usually California native. But the nice thing about it is we do live in a Mediterranean climate, so we also have the opportunity to take advantage of all the other plants that are suited to it. So plants from the southwestern part of Australia, southwestern Africa, of course the Mediterranean basin, southwest, South America. So they all have summer dry climates and wet winters. Last year, so you're able to kind of really mix them up as far as style and color and leaf shape and everything. I encourage you to definitely try that because they can be also drought tolerant. And ourselves water-wise garden. So our agenda for today, we're mostly going to be talking about all the tools that are associated with that. Compost and mulch, we're going to be talking about hydrozoning, bio-intensive edible planting. I always like to try to bring edibles equation because a lot of people have this perception that edibles are going to take a lot of water, and granted they do take a little bit more water than say maybe something like a succulent would, but you can still maximize that water and use that water efficiently, make sure that you don't have to overwater, use too much water in order to get those lemons and get all your fall crops. We're going to talk about water-wise plants, sheet mulching, of course, and then we're also going to cover things like recycling water, things like drip irrigation, rainwater, and then I always love stuff. All right, so of course the first thing I always want to talk about is compost. Compost is pretty much my thing. I'm going to pass around a couple of samples of it. I have homemade compost, which is on a square. That's compost from my own compost pile. Do we have any composters here? Diane, all right, awesome. I'm a full proponent of making sure that want to make compost, you can make compost on your site. It's very easy to do. I won't be going into details today, but I'm happy to set you on a path or answer about building a pile. Also too, incorporating with mulch, which is another thing. I have what's known as municipal compost. This is the most likely compost you got or you're able to get from your city or from your water agency, etc. When we're talking about compost, I always love to talk about the idea that, of course, the best compost. Sometimes there are big projects that you have to take on, or sometimes you don't have the ability to do what's known as basic compost. You don't have a lot of yard waste or a lot of trees in order to kind of make that mix. Everyone familiar with Senate Bill 1383? Has anybody heard of it? Okay. It's relatively brand new. It went into effect actually last year, 2020, and implemented starting this year in January. The goal being that we are trying to increase the amount of compost that we make in the state of California, as well as the amount of compost that we use. Our goal is always to try to find a good, clean, quality compost. Some of that compost is coming from your green parts. So it's usually a mixture of food scraps, yard waste, toilet paper. A lot of it is mostly just a lot of like yard waste, trees and shrubs and bushes, and combination of leaves, wood products. When it comes to the green part, our goal is always to try to make a good. So do take that in mind when you're adding things. We can do things like toilet paper, so things like boxes or something that's wax or has some sort of like plastic. Also a huge proponent of please trying to avoid those compostable bags or plastic bags. Those things don't break down. They will never break down. If they do break down, all they do is break down smaller pieces of it. Actually, the machinery that's involved in the grinding of the large compost, those end up getting caught up in the gears, which slows down production. So if you have to transport materials from your, say, your little tabletop carts to your green bin, I'm one of the things like newspaper, or I use cereal boxes, or pizza boxes, or sometimes I just fill it with stuff and then just dump it into the, brown paper bag. Feel like you need to transport it, feel like it's getting kind of frozen, you put it in the freezer, and then put it out, it's part frozen. Part of how that's concerned. But if you can get clean compost, and everybody is. So to speak to that, because you're trying to do better as far as composting and using compost, making high quality compost, everybody is involved and does stuff in their green part. Using it, some of the benefits of compost are in. Mostly is the ability to hold on to water. So if I have a pound of compost, that pound of compost will be able to hold its own weight in water. So when it comes to things like droughts, compost is always going to be a great tool in order to do that because it's going to hold on to water a lot longer. Also, it's made of organic material. So again, we're trying to feed the soil. Here. This lovely building, this lovely carpet, this lovely foundation. There's a whole ecology going on. Bacteria and fungus, all kinds of invertebrates, roots, everything. And so when we do our due diligence to the soil, when we feed the soil, and I think as a gardener, we always talk about what are you growing? Cabbages or lemons. I always think it's always a great thing, especially if you are doing it, to say, and I'm also growing soil. Also building soil. When you use organic materials and you use compost mulch, they eventually will break down and work their way into the soil. So if you're in a clay soil situation, compost is actually going to open up that clay soil. You know how notorious it is for, making sure the roots don't penetrate down. I've seen, avocado trees, 5-year-old avocado trees this tall in clay soil because it hasn't been able to penetrate down in order to get really established. No, it's able to do is kind of go laterally, not vertically. If you are like me, as a Martinez, when we have sandy soil, compost and mulch are gonna clump those sandy particles together so they can hold on to water and hold on to nutrition a lot longer. So I am a no-till kind of gal. For a couple of reasons. Number one, it's just really not necessary. You want your soil to be chunky. You want what's known as aggregates. So tilling it causes several things. You till the soil, it releases carbon into the atmosphere that they don't want to. Number two, there's a whole little network that goes on in your garden. You may not know it. So your fruit trees and your ornamental trees and your kale and your chard and your mint or even your wheat are having this whole discussion is based on fungus. Internet, they're all connected. They're either sharing resources, they're sharing water, they're literally communicating with each other back and forth. So imagine you're in your home, we're all at home, we're all in the same neighborhood, we're all watching Netflix or something. Somebody comes and just completely cuts the internet off to kind of the same thing. Don't want to break those connections. So tilling the soil, kind of be able to, it's not definitely the way to do it. The best use of it is to what we call is it's called top dressing. Basically putting compost on top of your soil, kind of lightly raking it into the soil, water is going to percolate down. It can be, but like I said, but you use the tools in conjunction with it. If I were just to go and planted a lemon tree in your yard and place soil, I would have pretty low expectations of how that thing would grow. But if I'm going to incorporate things like compost and mulch while I'm planting it, I have a better opportunity in order for that material to work their way into the soil. Today we should depth in the soil with the roots reach out. No, there's sometimes it's just from jump, just from the clay soil that you have on top. If I plant something and I plant it, a foot into the ground. You know what I mean? Maybe this kind of is going to be a little bit loose and aerated in that foot, just from where I dug that hole. Then now it's still going to be clay down. So if I'm going to be doing things like, say, I'm going to go ahead and put like a brand new plant in the ground. I'm going to take the soil out, whether it's clay soil or not. I'm going to mix that with compost. Usually about a third compost and 2/3 of the soil. I'm going to put the root ball back in. I'm going to backfill with my amended soil. I'm not going to put it right down in the hole. I want my roots, especially the fine roots, to find their way out and down through the soil. So if I put compost at the bottom, the roots are like, okay, cool. We have no need to really kind of go anywhere. Who's there? They just spread the food out around the root ball. You're going to do it. So then I'm going to place the soil. Then I'm going to put some more compost on top. And then I'm going to put mulch on top of that. Then I add my irrigation. So as the compost starts to break down, as the wood fiber starts to break down, it is going to loosen up the soil. Does it do it overnight? It does not. It will do it over the course of several weeks, several months, how hard that clay that is. But you will find that over time it will open up the soil and make it nice and viable. That's a nice thing too, if you're thinking about if you're going to plant maybe fruit trees in the spring or something. You raise kind of prep that soil, and then compost using mulch, then come back to plants. That way you're kind of doing low maintenance of anything and kind of prepping the soil. When the time comes to plant, you're going to find that it's going to be a little bit more easier to it. Because also you're also getting all the other invertebrates who are coming there and they're also working their way through the soil. Things like worms and roly-polies are going to be eating a lot of the organic material that compost that mulch provide. They end up, using their waste, and that adds more to the kind of the soil ecology, soil biology. Is there any question? Did I answer your question? Okay. So basic compost, mostly yard waste, food scraps, of course. If you can make your own compost, I definitely good. As part of Senate Bill 1383, each city, and they'll all be incorporated cities, but all cities have a procurement requirement. So they have to purchase compost on an annual basis based on their population. So for whatever the city of Fremont's population is, they have to buy a certain amount of compost and they have to distribute that because it's going to be worked at the city offices, it's going to be worked at ball fields and parks, then further down to the urban farm, the community garden. And depending on where where the city you live in, we've been organizing, I also work with solid waste, organizing compost hubs. Places where you can go and get compost for free. I have a QR code here that takes us to our link to stopwaste.org/compost. We're opening up different hubs with different cities all around Alameda County. So you go to the hours that are listed. You can go, it's a self-haul, so bring your bucket, bring your bags, shovel, and then you just shovel it up. You'll be able to take as much as you would like to take home to do things like sheet mulching or top dressing or side dressing. Side dressing is I'm adding compost around my already existing plants that they have. So I'm using my lemon tree example. I'm always gonna want to constantly at least add some more compost around to the base of it. It doesn't provide a lot of food as far as the kind of the NPK is concerned. It's pretty level as far as the nitrogen and phosphorus levels. But the benefits, of course, are the water holding capabilities and abilities to aerate. Ground coffee? Yeah, coffee grounds. You can definitely add those into your compost. Some people like to use them as kind of a thin mulch or acid loving plants. Like I've used it for my blueberries or my citrus plants. Apply a little bit around the bottom, but I usually end up mostly for the most part putting those into my worm bin or my you want to compost it. You don't want to ferment it. You definitely don't want to. No, because you wanted to break down the bacteria and fungus to break that down if at all possible. If you use it directly on your soil, I would say go super thin with that because you just go leave coffee grounds, in a filter. By the end of the day, it's very high and very hold on to a lot of water. So when you use them, if you use them there relatively thin. Then they're going to add a little bit of acid to the soil. Usually, I use that with my acid loving plants.
That's the time to break down that about that side.
It really all depends on the compost. The question is how long does it take to get finished compost? It really all depends on the composter. So if you're out there on a pretty consistent basis, you're aerating it, you're making sure it stays moist, and you're feeding it, it's gonna go a lot quicker.
The more you aerate it, the faster you.
Yes, because it's really about oxygen getting into there, and usually when you're making a compost pile, everything gets kind of wet and heavy, and so when it gets wet and heavy, then the pore space will close off, and then decomposition definitely slows down. But aerating it, I always like to say aerate or churn. If you have the time and capacity to churn your compost, and you basically take all the old stuff on the bottom and mix it with the old stuff and or move it to another bin, I think more power to you. But I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm pretty busy. So it's really about aerating, getting oxygen into it. So I'll take a digging fork or a pitchfork or a shovel. It's really kind of like tossing salads. I'm really moving with one fork. Just basically trying to get in there, get under and lift it up. Open up those air spaces, make it a little bit more popular.
Kind of alternate layers of leaves. And I don't like grass. My compost end up again in my garden.
Yeah, you want that to definitely get hot. I usually don't recommend grass, especially if you've done like a lot of treating of it, a lot of chemicals. I would definitely avoid it. If it's just regular old grass that just hasn't had any chemicals on it, then I would definitely use it. It's a lot of nitrogen and actually makes your bin go in the middle, which is kind of what you really want. You want that bacterial kind of action. All right, one more question and then I gotta move on to the next slide. I use an on-ground container. The one I've been using since 2006 for biostat. They don't make them anymore. There's a whole long, often targeted kind of story that goes along with it. Shame because it's great, but you can find them. Check on Facebook Marketplace or like Craigslist or Recycle or Buy Nothing kind of groups. I like it for the ease of use. But if you're incorporating things like food scraps, I definitely recommend that you kind of line the bottom with they call it hardware cloth, but it's really wire. It's a 1/4 inch, very, very small. Chicken wire has a tendency to rust and go really quickly, and then that 1/2 inch hole for chicken wire, so if you're trying to do a 1/4 inch, it's really good. It works really great for gophers as well as rodents you're trying to do. Yeah, you can definitely find. So basic compost, yard waste and food scraps. Get your free compost from your local compost hub. If not, check with your garbage company, check with your city. I can see what kind of options they're gonna also be having as far as compost giveaways. Because that's a lot of compost that are gonna be required to purchase tons and tons of compost, typically for your city, so you should definitely take advantage of that and get some. It's gonna be great in our garden again, it's great for our drought concerns, we can hold on to water. Also, compost has the great ability to absorb carbon from the atmosphere, and store it in permanent storage in the soil. That's another reason why we until our soil releases that carbon back into the atmosphere when it's cold and longer, and then the longer it holds, the more it pushes itself lower and lower and lower in the soil profile. So really. The other type of compost is worm castings, which is different. Those are made out of food scraps and usually bedding like newspaper. I'm going to treat that more like a fertilizer. I incorporate it. It doesn't have the water holding capabilities of basic compost does. But again, we're trying to feed the soil, and this is a very natural fertilizer, very high in nitrogen. So I'm going to want to use it sparingly. So if I'm mixing it with potting soil or any kind of soil, I'm not going to use any more than 20% casting 80% of that soil. Again, it's also providing food for our lovely little invertebrates and bacteria in the soil. So heating the soil, these are two great natural ways of actually able to do it. And if you're lucky enough, you may both of those at home. Mulch. We have coarse mulch. You can purchase mulch. A lot of it right now is recycled content mulch, usually made out of pallets or already kind of chipped up wood that you might get from a tree trimmer, and sometimes they dye it with these non-toxic dyes. If you opt for that kind of option, just don't go black. Don't do the black mulch. It's like for your plants. It's like ultraviolet sweater, downtown Livermore, middle of July. That kind of thing, very hot. It's gonna radiate heat back up and burn the bottom parts of your plant. Also too, the expectation of kind of like that homogeneous look, is kind of low. You're gonna have to go out there, because even if you don't have any trees on your property, somebody in your neighborhood is, and it's gonna come and it's gonna land on, this mulch that you're trying to kind of, make it steam. My favorite is arbor mulch. Generally is free. I did that from a tree trimmer. I usually call kind of small tree trimming companies. So I can expect like maybe 5 to 10 cubic yards of mulch, which is pretty good. I mean, that will cover a pretty good, about 1,000 square feet or so of it. And like a 3-inch depth. If you ever get redwood, then that's the Cadillac mulches, but that's usually hard to find. We usually find things like oak or pine and a lot of our native trees here. So when I call to order mulch, first question is, do you give it away for free? So yeah, we go on. How much can I expect? Always do that. I have a list on one of the reference pages, actually from the top of handouts are lawn2garden.org is the website. It's lawn2garden.org. And everything that needs to know about sheet mulching. It also has a resource calculator, so you can put in whatever the square footage of the project that you're trying to mulch. And it'll give you the amount that you need at a 3-inch depth. It'll also give you the amount of cardboard you may need. The compost, I believe that's in the 1.5. That. So when I'm calling for arbor mulch, how much am I expected to get? Then these are my nodes. My nodes are eucalyptus, black walnut, and black locust. In nature, these trees don't allow anything else to grow underneath them. Property is known as allelopathic property. Whether or not, once the tree is chipped and used as mulch, whether or not those properties dissipate, I've heard living stories. For me personally, especially if I'm getting it for free, I don't want to get 10 yards of eucalyptus and spread 10 yards of eucalyptus and realize that I can't plant any eucalyptus, that it doesn't allow my plants to grow. Now I have to scrape off 10 yards of eucalyptus, and now I have to get rid of 10 yards of eucalyptus. So I'm just going to avoid that, because that sounds like a lot of more extra work that I'm already doing. So I'm just usually saying no to that. That's usually the easy way. Usually what happens when it comes to urban mulch is sometimes you'll get a call the day before, because usually it's when they're further out there in your neighborhood or in your region. You get a call the day before, sometimes in the morning, and say, hey, this is Bob from, Bob Tree Service. We're gonna have some mulch tree today, would you like it? But the option of saying no, put you back on the list if you're not ready for it. If you're ready for it, they're gonna come and they're just gonna dump it. By law, they are not allowed to give you anything diseased, and I've had such circumstances where I've gotten that call at like 7:30 in the morning from the arborist saying, we're gonna have you mulch by 3. So I call my client, we're good to go, okay, cool, and then I get a call like 3 hours later, sorry, you found fetal blight or no death or something. We're by law, we're not allowed to give that. Yes, go ahead and put me back on the list. So Anna, over here for a question? That's always the way it's been. That they're technically not allowed to give you any, these plants or any of these parts.
Well, they'll deliver it.
Yeah, usually the way the arborist works is they're in your area. They're working in your area, and you'll get usually called the day before or sometimes the day of. Sometimes there's a bit of a wait. I've heard some good success with stuff like chip drop. You may want to check with something like that. It's allelopathic, so it doesn't allow anything to grow. So you just see a little tree growing out in the field somewhere. There's nothing else growing underneath it, any weeds, because it has these properties that keep the soil that's around it and don't allow anything else to grow. To outcompete it, which is unfortunate, because it's a hot tree. Sure. Shallow root system, and if the windfall are super crazy, you would think that they would want additional plants that anchor them to the soil, but they don't need either.
I think if you had like a big open space.
I guess if you don't want anything to definitely grow, I've started people using from for pathways, stuff like that in between beds, but directly plant in, I would not.
No, I wouldn't.
If that's the case, yeah, but take into consideration that you may not be able to, if you change your mind, there may be a wait period, there may be a permanent, or you may have to remove that mulch and wait for, nature to kind of work itself out. All right, so coarse mulch. And I'm gonna use that for perennial beds, so anything that has like a woody stem, so fruit trees, drought tolerant natives that have woody stems, anything that's, a perennial kind of plant, something I'm gonna plant one time and it's gonna give me love for hopefully decades. And then we have our fine mulch, something like a straw or leaves, or pine needles. Straw is really great for things like annual edibles or tomatoes or kale, stuff like that. I'm only going to use that in about 1 to 2 inches. I'm not going to go heavy on that. And everybody else, well, why can't I use coarse mulch with my annuals? You can, but I would not use it super close to it because it does have a lot of water when it gets to the leaves. It might be too much water for like a fleshy or a fleshy kind of plant. It's really more suited to more of a woody one. But I've been known to, ring the outside of a bed with a coarse mulch, maybe 1 to 2 inches. And so when I water, that water is kind of captured by that mulch and at least held along the edges of my plant. Pine needles, those are fine. I would like to break those up a little bit. They're a little bit of acidic, so they might work well with some acid-loving plants as well as fruit trees, as well as things like camellias or rhododendrons or azaleas. They all live really well with acid in soil because they're usually understory plants for redwood trees. And then leaves, always incorporate leaves because when leaves fall down from your trees, don't do anything that you have to sweep those bad boys up because they do a really good job of breaking down and returning that nutrition back into its original kind of parent tree. are planting and bringing plants together for their, most likely for their water needs, as well as kind of their sun and shade needs. So when you're looking at plants, and we'll just use kind of like drought tolerant plants as an example, there's some that are drought tolerant. And I'm not gonna plant a tomato plant next to my drought tolerant. Both have different needs, both definitely have different water needs. Watering for my tomato, I might kill my drought tolerant plant. Or if say I'm doing a tomato and maybe like the succulent, again, it's the same case. Too much water on a succulent is a water killer. So when I'm watering my succulent like my tomato, my succulent's gonna die. If I'm watering my tomato like I should do my succulent, that's not enough water for my tomatoes. You always want to kind of plant and group things together. So if it's a full sun plant and doesn't require a lot of water, I'm gonna want to plant those together. I'm going to put my water friends all together. The nice thing about that, especially if you're using drip irrigation, you're using a smart controller, you have the option of creating these different little hydro zones. So my big water, all my edible fruit trees, my annuals, those are all going to require a fair amount of water. My drought tolerant plants, they're going to require a certain amount of water, but it's not going to be the same as annuals. You're going to want to do infrequent and deep watering on your tomatoes in order to encourage the roots to go down and go further in the soil. Not so much for maybe your annual or your edible perennial. For controllers, you can nerd out as much as you like. There's soil probes, one has GPS, all types of stuff. Again, you can water appropriately. I'm always a big proponent of, if you have one, to try to find a irrigation controller with they call it a seasonal adjustment. So seasonal adjustment is a great little thing as you kind of transition in and out of seasons. So right now, everyone's tomatoes and everything are kind of done for, but maybe you have some other things that are still on your system. So I can, depending on the zone, I can reduce the amount of water that comes out. The timing will still be the same, the days of the week will still be the same, it's just the amount of water that your plant gets. So middle summer, it might be 100%, but now as I'm transitioning out, I will still need maybe a little bit of water, and as it kind of rains, I may turn that irrigation off, but as we kind of get into where it's still kind of moist, but not so much, I need to supplement, it may only get 10% of water, and I can start to gradually increase as we get to that kind of a hotter temperature. But I haven't had to change the zones, I haven't had to change the timing, nor have I had to change anything, just the amount of water plants can get. And I think that just makes it easier sometimes with irrigation controller. Don't have rocket science degree. Need to create some zones. Biointensive edible planting. So when I always talk about planting in beds or planting, we want to kind of avoid kind of that row culture. I can plant kind of what they call off center. So instead of, I could do like a tomato and a tomato, usually about 12 to 18 or 12 to 24 inches apart from each other. I might plant them a little bit closer to each other, tomato, tomato, and then I might put a tomato right here. As they grow kind of close together, it kind of covers the soil, so it's acting kind of as a living mulch. We're all kind of working together as far as water capability is concerned. But then also interplanting is also another key component. So say I have tomato, tomato, tomato. Along the edge I've done basil, basil along the edge. Then in the middle of my tomato, I planted carrot seeds, carrots. So as my carrots and my basil start to, as my tomatoes and my basil start to die, then now my carrots are now going to come up, especially in the fall. It's a great time to plant carrots. Seed, but they need that warm soil in order to germinate. So now I'm kind of doing like succession planting. I'm planting, even if my tomatoes and my carrots are growing at the same time, they're not really totally fighting for resources. One's going down, one's going up. They're not really totally fighting for space. So it's nice to be able to plant things a little bit closer together and take into consideration that you can interplant other things whether they be herbs or whether they be, small vegetables. You can do other things and plant them at the same time. To maximize those space. Then of course, if I can take more plants, I'm gonna end up with much larger yield. Also really focuses on recycling waste, so we want to get into that. If you're interested, there is a great John Devins, he is the kind of the guru for biointensive gardening. He runs a demonstration farm up in Woods, about 2.5 to 3 hours to the north from here. And it's usually like a weekend retreat. Basically, you learn how to do it, and he teaches people all over the world how to maximize using space and maximize water. This is another great example of the row culture, 3-foot wide, traditional planting. But now I'm going to incorporate a lot more extra plants, so which means I can be able to grow a lot more food in the same space that we normally have, kind of like that traditional kind of row culture. Kind of a pretty plain. Some of them, most of them are California natives, some of them are not. So great some examples. There's on the top, to the top left, that is buckwheat. That is a California native. Below that is a Mexican bush marigold. It is relatively big. All of these are going to be required by generally full sun. Mallow is in the middle top. Or California poppy or state flower. Penstemon on the bottom right, and in the bottom center, it's called the Friday plant, also known as the silver poppy. That's called the Friday, obviously because it has that big yellow center. My favorite plant, hands down my favorite plant for a variety of different reasons. This is yarrow. In nature, it's white, so you would go out on a hike, you most likely see it. Beautiful kind of multi-flowered colors. It comes in different cultivars, which different colors. So the yellow, that one's called, the bottom is called paprika, but they have pinks and all different types of stuff. The nice thing about it is it's a full sun plant. Bees love it, butterflies love it, and it is the host plant for at least 5 different types of beneficial insects, one of which you see on the yellow ones. Anybody know what that is on my yellow yarrow? That's a lady beetle. That's a juvenile lady beetle. Baby, the teenager of the ladybug. So your traditional ladybug, red with the black spots. This is what they look like before they transition to that. So if I'm trying to attract lady beetles to my yard, this is a plant that does that. So what happens is the adult lady beetle, they lay their eggs on there and they rely a little bit on the pest, mostly on the nectar from the flowers, in order to survive. If they're young, they eat hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of aphids on a daily basis. So just by planting this plant, you're getting not only lady beetles, but there's surfer flies, hoverflies, and parasitic wasps. They all use that plant as their habitat. And then they lay their young, and then if sorry, you most likely have pets in your yard. So they're going to be there to eat it. So you do have to accept some sort of level of pest control for pests if you want good pest control. It does really great for hot climates. It doesn't really get that big, somewhere between 2 to 4 feet tall, 2 to 4 feet wide. Sometimes it reseeds itself, but I consider that a good thing. Easily divided, so you have a small yard and you're incorporating a lot of stuff. This is a more bang for your buck kind of plant. Definitely, yeah. So I would say go to an independent nursery, you will be able to find it. And you also go to an independent nursery, you're actually getting only good quality plants, but you're getting knowledge as well. You're gonna have a conversation hopefully with a mystery person. Not Bob who was amazing last week and now going to shift in the nursery and going to be in hardware next week. But yeah, yarrow, really great plant.
It's like a friend.
It's a perennial. Yeah, these are all perennials. This one's a little more fleshy. And so, there's a little bit of deadheading right now. They're all kind of getting a little bit crispy. flowers, and so I always cut off the flower and like put it aside, because that's great for birds. Then when you deadhead, when you cut off your stuff blossoms, it encourages it to continue to bloom. What to do? Manzanita. It's evergreen, of course, another perennial. It's distinctive by its lovely kind of bell-shaped white flower, and then these very striking, I don't know if they're striking, red, kind of red peely bark. It's great, kind of like a great little accent plant. As far as how I can get it, again, I'm gonna go to an independent nursery. I can get it in a ground cover variety that maybe only goes about 3 feet in each direction. I can get a small shrub. I can get a big old tree. So I can get all different types for manzanita. For well-drained, acidic or neutral soil, so it's always great if you have redwood or pine trees. It does really, really well with that. Any kind of pine, any kind of conifer or redwood tree, they're gonna make the soil around it relatively acidic. So it's always nice to kind of right plant, right place, placing plants where they're gonna be very little more thick. So that you can look in a picture. A lovely little urn shape, and then it makes a little apple. Manzanita is finished for a little apple. And then, like I said, the very striking, beautiful kind of red bark. And it's very open too, so the kind of an open shrub, open tree. So if you're looking for that kind of that pop of color, you won't normally get too many plants that are grown and stuff like that as a bark, but not the Manzanita. This is yarrow's big brother. You have space for this. Again, this is similar to yarrow in return, in regards to its pollinators are loving on it, as well as beneficial insects are also loving on it as well. It also, like manzanita, I can get a ground cover, I can get a shrub the size of this table, I can get a tree that goes all the way up to the ceiling. So depending on type of variety that you're looking for, you make sure you do your homework when you go out to the nursery, and when it says it's gonna get 10 feet wide, believe it's gonna get 10 feet wide. So plant it, accordingly. Plant it and walk 5 feet on either side. And then plant. You don't want to plant things too close together, because you end up doing a lot of sharing. Always try to plant from the short side. Full sun to partial shade is also drought tolerant. It has the ability to fix nitrogen, which is kind of rare and something that's not a pea plant. So it's also nice too. It's going to be fixing nitrogen, which is great for the soil. And then the color ranges, there's white, that very dark, they call it dark star, cyanothus. Generally it's the native one is more like a lilac. It does have quite a footprint. And or you can check for the maximum size. Certainly. You can tell things like, okay, I actually have a little coffee can. A couple days. So I usually just cut off the stem and I put them using my property. Yeah, and then that way I can still encourage the plants to keep flowering, but I'm not wasting all the potential for birds and stuff. You can buy a little tree. Yeah, you can buy it, yeah. Like I said, you can get shrub, you can get big old tree. Yeah, they run the gamut. So if you wanted to kind of lollipop it, you technically could. Other question? No, she's talking about kind of shaping it into like a specific size, especially if you just want to kind of create a canopy. They call it lollipopping. So if you basically have a trunk, maybe it has like 3 or 4, I'm going to cut the ones that come off, and then I'm going to make my brown, a little bit more like an umbrella. Or brown for the lollipop. Plant a bush. You want it anyone? Another great full sun plant. Some people like it, the leaves, you can tell they're kind of peachy, they have that flannel feel to it. Some people don't like that, some people are irritated by it. I always like to include it because they say that deer won't eat it, and I know deer will eat anything. So if they're not willing to eat that, then that's definitely a beautiful plant. It's really good on slopes. It gets relatively big. My city uses it as a kind of along the street tree. So during the springtime, very gorgeous, beautiful, beautiful, big yellow kind of flowers. I actually thought difficult to word where the flowers were the yellowy orange. Wow. Second flower is not a California native. I'm not even really sure it's drought tolerant. I like it because it's ground cover. Really just only kind of covers the ground. But the bloom time is ridiculous. It blooms from May all the way into our first frost. So it's a really great bang for your buck kind of plants. It needs good drainage, it does great in the heat. And like I said, it's a butterfly. You don't tell what kind of flower something's going to attract. It's kind of tube shaped, hummingbirds are gonna want to get in there, bees are gonna want to get in there. If it's kind of have a landing pad, you can imagine that bees and butterflies are gonna want to hang out. You can always kind of tell. And then, you want to try to bring in some other friends. I fully encourage you to do so. That is all different kinds of great plants for that. The one is called hummingbird sage. Salvia is the largest genus in the mint family. I could do a whole garden of just salvias, and none of them would look exactly the same as another picture. Most of them require full sun. They do need occasional water in the summer months. Usually the more woody ones. This hummingbird sage is a little bit more fleshy. A little bit different. So you need to kind of give it free rein, kind of cover, because it will kind of cover. Will cover. As you can see, the kind of tube-shaped flower that it produces, perfect for hummingbird. That's what I try to do. It is the same. It's the same family of edible sage.
I've never had a blossom like that.
Oh yeah, this is the ornamental sage. Yeah, the edible sage, same family as mint. So it's the mint family. So just like mint, this one has a tendency to be a little bit aggressive. Mint can be really aggressive. Yeah, that's okay with absolutely. Make sure that if you had opportunity to register, I think you just need your email. If you haven't had a chance to register for the class and you do want the slides, make sure that you give that to Self Arts Megan or you. If you received a confirmation, then you're in the system. I'm happy to do that. Yeah. Not that I'm aware of, no. I would not. I probably would just do definitely to avoid it. Whether or not they are, I could not say. I just really stick to the edible stage. I don't use a lot. Okay. Mexican sage on the left. No, that's that one is very popular. Pineapple sage. Some of the leaves are fragrant on them. They're nice. So you can see kind of the shape. So the benefits to our drought tolerant plants. I can't remember what the one on the bottom is. I never remember the name of it, but it's cute as heck, and it never stops blooming. It's very tidy, usually about maybe 2 feet circular, and as long as you keep the spent blossoms cut, it will continue to produce and produce. I can't remember. I'm so sorry. Like me, I can't remember. Usually they're like, oh, pretty nice, like pictures. The one on top, however, is the Western Redbud. That one is gorgeous. It all starts off bare tree, and then the purpley pink flowers come first, and then you get the chartreuse, the leaves. And so it starts off just gorgeous. Some of the benefits of California native drop on plants, they're already suited to our climate, they already know how horrible clay soil is. So they don't have to worry about that. Provide food and shelter for native species, provide habitat for things like pollinators, and then of course many of them are different. Most drought tolerant plants are going to require or need some additional drainage. So I like to plant them on mounds, or if you have kind of like a slope, it's really great for slope. The term we always use is that natives don't like to get their feet wet. So you definitely want to try to encourage some additional drainage for them by creating mounds, usually the soil that you might have on your property. We talk about that when we get into the sheet mulching as well. And then just using mulch around it, not putting it too close to the base of the tree. You definitely want to try to avoid that. Because the great water holding capability, you don't want that to backfire. You also want a little bit of space around here, especially if it's not necessarily a native, but if you're going to be watering it, if you're going to be, if it's something edible, you're going to be amending it. You definitely want a little bit of space. Use some compost right here. But I definitely don't want my mulch too close up, and I definitely don't want it right on my main trunk or my main stem. We talked about plant furniture size, certainly, to avoid overcrowding, to avoid having to over shearing. So believe what it says when it says 10 feet wide or 12 feet wide or 3 feet wide. Talked about hydrozoning briefly. Planting in fall is also going to be super key because the shorter days, the cooler days, of course, and then of course the possibility of getting water to kind of help them get established. Nice thing about it is most drought tolerant plants, especially the fleshy ones, they have a tendency to get just a little bit earlier, maybe 1 to 2 years. Something that's perennial might take maybe 2 to 3 years to get fully established. And the nice thing about it is if we continue on with a good track of regular winter rain, then I mean I can turn off my irrigation. And this is another great reason to create those hydro zones. That way you can disconnect the irrigation when now all it's going to rely on is the winter to kind of keep it irrigated. Try not to compete with the summer heat. That's going to totally stress out the plant. So fall over the I would want to incorporate succulents because succulents are beautiful. Again, they also drought tolerant. They just require a little bit of water to kind of keep them nice and fleshy. If I'm planting these in conjunction with native plants, chances are I am not going to actually add emitters to my succulents because they'll be able to take advantage of whatever else is going on. So if I say I have like my manzanita. I'm going to plant my manzanita and then I'm going to plant some sort of succulent. I'm going to water for the manzanita, and the succulent will be able to take advantage of any excess water it has. It doesn't require that much water. The whole idea is to try to keep them kind of fleshy. So irrigating might actually be adding too much to that. They run the gamut. Pictures, chicks and hens. There's a paddle plant calico, agave on the top. Agave color. Sedums in the bottom on the left, very small stone crop kind of plants. And then that one on the far right is an Aeonia. Remember the J family? That is the flower of an Aeonium plant. So the flowers, it takes a while for succulents to flower, but when they do, they really show up nice. Very beautiful. Some of them, especially these like agave, big ones, that basically just look like a large asparagus here, going like 40 feet into the sky. All right. We'll talk about sheet mulching. For me, sheet mulching is the perfect marriage of cardboard, compost, and mulch. I'm going to be building healthy soil with it. I'm going to create a reservoir where water is going to stay right on my property so my plant can have access to it. That's sheet mulching. Have all the different information about sheet mulching. I definitely encourage you to do that. But if you do, please take advantage of the rebate situation that we've got going on here. There's money to be had for converting your lawn into something drought tolerant. They can try it. Sheet mulching is gonna promote healthy plants. Again, we're gonna feed that food soil web ecology that's underneath us. And the nice thing about it is when we feed the soil, it returns the favor. So in a lot of instances, there's stuff that goes on in our soil that we don't know nothing about because the vertebrates as well as all the organisms in there put stop to it. So plants need to stop even before you have the opportunity to get a pest. So if you feed the soil loves you in return. Sheet mulch is great for unused area. You have a question? Oh yeah, I'm gonna totally get into that. Oh yeah. I mean, talk about marriage, but I'll definitely get into that. No, absolutely, no, absolutely. Not gonna be a quiz or anything after this. It's excellent for unused area, so say there's like some weird corner in your yard, it's just a weed patch, or when it rains, it turns into a mud patch. You can mulch it, even if you're not gonna do anything with it, or think about you're gonna do something later. Or you're like, okay, you know what, I wanna sheet mulch this, I wanna plant this a little bit later, you have time to do that. Again, when you add all these materials to the soil, they are organic nature, they will eventually break down, there will come a point where you're gonna have to probably add some more cardboard and add some more mulch to the situation, but for the most part, everything else stays kind of even keel. Mulch creates a beautiful kind of uniform, attractive landscape. I kind of call it a blank palette for you to build a beautiful drought tolerant garden from. Saves money, water, and time, especially if you have a lawn and now you're like, get my weekends back, I get the no more weed and feed, I get the no more, I gotta mix gas and oil and all that nonsense. You take that, use that time to mulch stuff. Weed suppression, erosion minimization, which is nice, definitely want that soil to stay on your property. Sheet mulching helps keep that in place. It talks about protecting the environment. I talk about that in terms of the fact there's a lot of things that you can do. Things that you may already have on your property, things that you may have in close proximity to you that you can use kind of DIY in order to kind of close the loop. Getting pre-mulch is one of those. Yeah.
Where the first picture?
Yeah, roll cardboard is becoming a little hard to find these days, to be honest. We're going to go to San Jose. That's usually the closest. But if you go to, like I said, you go to Lawn and Garden, there's also a marketplace, you put your zip code in there, and it gives you, listing of places where you can buy content, recycled content mulch, recycled content compost, as well as recycled cardboard. And then we talked about capturing carbon, using that compost. So our first layer is going to be that cardboard. So again, you can go out and if you can find it, you can purchase. Well, cardboard is called bead flutes. It ranges in widths. Widths are usually anywhere from 3 to 6 feet wide. The lengths are usually only about 250 feet. What I always recommend is very thin. So if you're trying to give her something nasty like Bermuda grass or a big pill or ivy, I would either get more of the rolled cardboard and kind of roll it in one direction, then roll it in the other direction. I'm a fan of box. First of all, they're free. You just have to do a little bit of scrounging, you know, but look at things like bike shops. This box right here that being displayed in the picture, that's a bike box. That's like 3 of these layers. You get a bike box, the bike box is gonna be about 6 feet long. That's box is closed. Once you pop it open, bam, now you got 12 feet of space in one box. Especially if you're trying to get rid of something nasty. Even something small like this is a little bit boxed just because there are corners, there are kind of alcove little areas. Sometimes you have to, there's a box with a hole in it, you have to patch it. So all boxes are really good boxes. Making sure that you overlap them by about 6 to 8 inches, which is another great thing I like about cardboard boxes, because I know it's gonna be, I'm gonna really do a really good overlap, because there are so many gaps in them. So sometimes in some spaces, you may end up with a layer of 2 or 3 cardboard boxes thick, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's gonna take a while for the cardboard to break down. But yeah, overlap by 6 to 8 inches. Some people like to water their cardboard into place. I'm not a fan of that. And then it gets slippery when it's wet. You definitely trying to avoid hurting yourself. Also, that once it gets wet, it starts to break down. I wanted to kind of maintain its integrity as long as possible. So generally, if I'm doing sheet mulch, so I'm going to incorporate my weed blocker first, and then I'm going to add compost, about 1.5 to 2 inches on top of it. So I'm doing if I'm doing a sheet mulch job, I'm gonna probably start at the corner. I'm gonna cardboard as much as I can, overlapping by that 6 to 8 inches. I'm gonna cover that cardboard with my compost, just making sure that my outer edge is still visible. So that way I do that good 6 to 8 inch overlap. Then I'm gonna step on that compost. The compost is gonna anchor that cardboard into place, make it not slippery. Then I'm gonna continue to cardboard and compost, and then just cover the whole thing with mulch. Again, 1.5 to 2 inches on top of your cardboard layer. Again, it's gonna hold moisture. Once I have my cardboard and my compost and my mulch in place, when rains come, it's gonna hold that water right here in the middle, which is great. So now my plants will be able to take advantage of that. Again, one of the great benefits of compost is it's really to aerate those clay soils and to clean those sandy soils. And then if you're planting, it provides just basic nutrition just to how plants are growing. That even includes things like native plants. But that would be the only time that I'm going to be incorporating compost with my native plants. I won't have to do that. That's my second layer. If I'm going to be doing irrigation tubing, my tubing is going to go on top of my compost layer, underneath my third layer, and mulch. Minimum of 3 inches of that coarse mulch. Along the top of that, again, is that sponge. It allows for to slow down evaporation, especially if your irrigation is right in the middle. You're not going to have that overspray. It's going to end up right here in the middle. Again, it does have to be reapplied when it does break down. That's super easy to do. I have my 3 layers. So the first thing you should do, of course, is to apply for the rebate. The rebate is not retroactive after you've done the project, but making sure that you apply for the project first, get approval, and then you can kind of go from there. The approval process usually takes about 1 to 2 weeks, depending on how busy they are. It's mostly like square footage. They usually check on your kind of water use for the area. I know some of the requirements do require that your lawn will be kind of technically alive in order to qualify for the rebates, but I would double check with your water agency. Then after you're done doing that, I'm going to contact 811 prior to digging, because there is a little bit of work that needs to be done prior to that. Usually trenching or planting of big things. You want to just try to avoid any of your, your utility lines. You can call them, but I just usually go on their websites and I make a ticket. And you're gonna tell them, they're gonna ask where in your yard you're gonna be doing the work, and front yard, backyard, front side yard, back side yard. You'll let them know where it is, let them know that you're gonna be trenching for sheet mulching. Then they're gonna send everybody out one ticket, and TV and water and cable and whatever kind of funky things you got running. I've seen all different types of stuff. You're gonna get a ton of emails, just as a heads up. Which is basically letting you know that either A, they found something and marked it, or B, that it doesn't run underneath that, or you're gonna be doing. Then while you're doing that, chances are you're gonna be capping and converting your irrigation. You're gonna be trenching along the hardscape edge. So planting, anything that's 5 gallons or larger, you're gonna want to put it into the ground first, because after you sheet mulch, you don't want to destroy your sheet mulch by digging a 5-foot hole, a hole to accommodate a 5-gallon plant. So planting your 5 gallon or larger, so any big fruit trees or any kind of big kind of tree that's 5 gallons or larger, definitely wanna plant it, just making sure that when you do plant it, if I'm planting it today, just for regular, I'm gonna plant it, pretty even with soil, or maybe a little bit higher in the soil depending. But I wanna make sure that I make enough room for my cardboard compost and mulch, so I'm gonna allow the root ball to kind of settle above the soil level. So when the time comes for cardboard compost and mulch, either it's even, or depending on the plant, it might be cardboard compost and mulch. Might be on a mound, if that might be something really good for something that's drought tolerant, California native. Something that needs that additional drainage. So I'm gonna plant my 5 gallons. If I have tall weeds, I'm just gonna chop them down. Anything that's maybe about a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch in diameter, I'm gonna try to pull that out. For sure, you don't want that to go through the cardboard, but I'm just gonna take it and I'm just gonna lay it down. I'm gonna sheet mulch on top of it. You do not have to take out your lawn, do not take out your lawn. That's some extra work to do. But what you can do is when you cover it with all these sheet mulch components, it's gonna die. You're basically composting your lawn into place. And its final gift to you is to release all the nitrogen that it's sucked up out of the soil during the whole entire time that you're trying to keep it alive, nice and fresh and green. What you can do is return that nitrogen back to the soil. Then you're going to trench along the hardscape edge. So anywhere your sheet mulch project is going to meet the sidewalk, driveway, walkway, sometimes with your junction boxes and stuff like that in your yard, with the city put it in or something like that. So the idea being is I want my mulch to stay in place. So if I have my sidewalk and I don't trench, then it's cardboard, compost, and mulch. So where's the mulch all gonna go? Yeah, exactly, it's just gonna spill right onto the sidewalk. But if I trench, and I'm taking about 3 to 6 inches down, about a foot apart, foot away from it, and I wanna go at a 45-degree angle to it as well. So when I put my cardboard down into the trench, the cardboard works very nice in that trench. Also, if there's a runner weed that I'm trying to get rid of, now at an angle, block it. Now I know ideally, the idea is that maybe 90 degrees might work better, but is the mulching compost gonna sit on this kind of basically point now? Not going to. But at a 45-degree angle, I can make it slow down and everything will stay nice in place. And then when I do cardboard compost and mulch, now it's either a little bit lower or even with my hardscape, so it can actually do the work that it needs to do in order to suppress those weeds, hold water, keep runner weeds from going for sure. Now, I got a bunch of dirt clots, yeah? So dirt and grass clots. I have the option of, well, I mean, literally, I do have the option of just putting it into the landfill. But that's gonna take several weeks in order for you to do it, because it ends up being a fair amount of material. So either I'm gonna create mounds for visual interest, or if you're not into that, just spread it evenly across the landscape and then sheet mulch on top of it. And when you first sheet mulch, everything's gonna look super kind of fluffy and really kind of big and high. It just takes a minute for the soil to settle down, and the cardboard settle down, the mulch and compost all settle down, and they'll still down. Still be slightly raised, but it's not gonna look, that's super fluffy. It won't matter. And then you're going to sheet mulch over top of it. Again, I want kind of long boxes. I want to go over that. I don't want to go across it, because sometimes if you go across it now, it'll pop up. And that's where compost and mulch is going to sit there, but not for long, and then there's light can come there. I'm trying to get rid of something empty. It's going to want to come up in those open gaps, but 8 inches is super key. Wow. Any questions about this so far? Right. I think probably the part that takes the longest. If you have clay soil, I recommend kind of water that edge area first, give it like about a day, a good little bit of watering, and then go at it with the shovel. It makes it a lot easier to. That's the prep step.
We already have a screen. Rip it out to put it in.
You don't have to.
So, then I think they make like, I don't know, called spiders or whatever, that sort of come right off of, get a bunch of tubes.
Yeah, so that's what you should definitely put through your irrigation. So when you go to convert from, your standard, sprinkler head to this, There's a couple things that need to be done, because the pressure that comes out of this, that comes from your house, is very high. And it's gonna be way too high for for drip irrigation to handle too much pressure. The goal is to try to bring down the pounds per inch to about 25, 30 PSI, so you need a pressure regulator for that. Now, depending on how handy you are, you have the option of going to the valve, basically where, where all the housing is for your sprinkler, for your traditional sprinkler head. You'll have to cut the PVC, and then you'll have to put a filter and a pressure regulator on there, you have to glue it, make these connections, and I'm not into that, because I'm not into that. So I generally get, and I've only ever seen them at Urban Farmer, there's a pop-up conversion kits. So, say I have, an area, and I'm gonna convert that, and I eventually wanna go ahead and make new plantings. So, say, generally speaking, you would expect your irrigation to be, corner, 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 maybe one in the middle, sometimes, they run the gamut. So I'm going to say, if I'm gonna do it, I'm probably gonna pick the one in the middle. The one that's in the middle, I'm going to unscrew this, and then I'm gonna put this conversion kit on it. It looks very similar to this. So this one has a pressure regulator in it, it also has a filter in it. It also has connectors at the top, screwing to the top. Now I have to take half-inch tubing and connect it to this. Significant things to take into consideration when you're switching out your irrigation and who's going to be your candidate for irrigation conversion. Say my garden's on the slope. So chances are I'm probably going to put the irrigation situation higher on the slope as opposed to lower, so that my water doesn't have to actually continuously push and actually use gravity to kind of help the situation. So find something that's most centrally located, and then from there you can run like half-inch here, and then it really runs the gamut about how we want to do. For the ones that you're not going to convert, most likely you have half-inch caps or half-inch on the white tubing, PVC tubing. So I'm just going to take a half-inch cap. I'm going to unscrew my sprinkler head. I'm going to take Teflon tape. I'm going to put it around the threads that come up, and then I'm just going to hand tighten this. You don't want to go too hard because you don't want to over tighten it. And then I'm just going to cap the ones that I don't want, and then convert the ones that I do want to irrigation. And then, like I said, it runs the gamut. You do regular black spaghetti string with emitters on the ends. There's inline tubing, where it's tubing that already has emitters and filters in it, and they range between 6 inches, 12 inches, 18 inches. That way I can kind of create loops around trees, stuff like that, and just connect it to half an inch. Like I said, my friend started the best way to use Legos. So you just have to make sure that they don't have physical irrigation, no connections, making sure that they are connected and that they're solid and they don't. It's very easy to do. This is an example of trenching, as well as putting that cardboard down into the trench. You can see I allow the cardboard to kind of come down and then kind of come up the side. I don't mind that. And then you can see there's a few little gaps. I'm going to take small pieces of cardboard like that, and I'm going to cover it. That way I can cover the whole entire area. You can see how it doesn't even come quite up to the level of the hardscape.
You can tape on. It looks like.
I do leave the tape on. I always leave the tape on for 2 reasons. Chances are, what happens if I pull tape off the spot? I gotta put it on the can. I'm going to be taking some of that cardboard off. So definitely try to avoid. So I want to maintain the integrity of it. Number 2, to me, the tape is always like literally like a flag. So I see tape. That means A, most likely my mulch is broken down. B, my cardboard is definitely broken down. So it's kind of like a flag, and I just go and I just take it out and put it in the garbage. So it always gives me an indication that I most likely need cardboard and mulch in that area. And then so I'll just go to it, I'll move all my old mulch back, see how big the whole situation is, and I'll make it bigger. Put a bigger piece of cardboard over the smaller hole, and then return my old mulch, and then put new mulch right on top, 3 inches, and I'm good to go.
I thought this was.
No, it's not, because everything's organic, so eventually will all break down. So yes, so come a time of maintenance. Also too, I know we talked about sheet mulching and how to do it, but I encourage everyone to grab one of these. It's basically caring for your garden, after sheet mulching, because it is low maintenance, but it's definitely not no maintenance. And it basically covers years 1, 2, and 3, things that you can expect. You're planting your sheet mulch garden. Alright. Now we're gonna talk about recycling water, specifically gray water, rainwater capture. Rainwater systems are a great way to recycle water. Probably the most popular or maybe well-known rainwater is a laundry to landscape system, where you're gonna be diverting water from your washing machine and using that to irrigate your perennials, your fruit trees, your native plants. It's basically water on demand. So basically, if you have that valve open and you're doing laundry, water is gonna be coming out of there and irrigating it. In the winter time, the nice thing about it is you have the option of swapping. This is the 3-valve system that you normally have for gray water. There's usually a rebate that's associated with this, which is also nice. So check with your water agency, of course, to see if they offer a rebate specifically for the valve. So I have the option of making it all go to gray water, sending it all to my garden. But say it's winter time and it's pouring rain and my garden doesn't need water. I can switch to the sewer, or say I'm washing something funky on it, or something that I don't want to introduce into my garden. Then I can also switch to sewer and then have that water diverted back to the sewer. And then whenever I'm ready, I can switch it to gray water. You don't have to change your soaps. You have to go low phosphate soaps with gray water for sure. The three-way valve. Or if you look for laundry to landscape, there should be a handout in the packet that I made. Right. Of course, the handout. So non-phosphate soaps, it can store it. So you have to use it right away. Unlike rainwater, you can store rainwater pretty much indefinitely. You're going to want to irrigate only the soil. And like I said, it's really great for things like perennial plants, mostly like fruit trees and stuff. There it is. Nice thing about it is you don't need a permit for this. Before that was kind of the standard. The permit for the valve system for that. Like I said, it's also. And the gray water, yeah, there's the gray water handout. One that you're looking at. Sorry, second, third one. Oh, the other one, the next one. Right there. That's gray water. But yeah, so that's also a great option. There's options for, diverting water from your shower, but that usually requires a permit and a pond and filters and all different types of stuff. But that's gallons and gallons of water that you could be using on your using in your landscape. If you have any questions, there's a great organization called Gray Water Action. They actually do kind of teach and learns. Basically, which means that say you wanted to so they probably want to have a gray water install. He contacted Gray Water Action and he offered to have us all over to his house to learn how to install a gray water system. They require you to purchase the components, usually range about $200 to $300. We all come to your house. A qualified instructor from Gray Water Action is there, and we all get to learn how to install it. And we install a gray water system out on your property that day. So now you get a gray water system, we all get the opportunity to learn how easy it is to do. And then pretty much a win-win, I think, for everybody involved. Rain barrels and rainwater harvesting. Unlike rainwater can be stored indefinitely. So we did last year. Hey, but sometimes we do, and it's always kind of good to have that backup rain, especially between our rain period. We can store it indefinitely. A lot of people like to store, depending on situation they have, they like to store that for emergency, literal emergency. So all it needs to be is just completely filtered out, you know, for. That. Depending on your system, and the nice thing about rainwater catchment is you do not have to go fancy. Most of mine is like, I fill the buckets, underneath wherever water happens to be coming down, and then I run out in the rain, I pull one into the side, and put another one in. I did get a rain barrel for my birthday a couple of years ago, and then had to wait 2 years in order for it to get full. You see the background, there's a mosquito dumps. There's a bacteria called BT, don't ask me to pronounce it in Latin. But if you have any concerns with mosquitoes breeding in your water, you can add this to your water. It's gonna kill any mosquito larvae, but the water is still potable. So your cats can mess with it, your dog is, I can still use the water on plants. I can still drink it if I want to. And it just kills the larvae. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about, you know, you have concerns with my own. Talked about the pop-up irrigation. Talk briefly about the drip irrigation. My little bed. My yard. Tubing. Kale. Coming up, I really replanted here, so there was kale, arugula, and sugar snap peas all growing in that same bed. Irrigation in order to have that lovely little inline tubing. And I use the blank stuff when I don't want water to have to, because I'm connecting to my main hose. I'm going to use blanks, then either emitters or emitter tubing. Talked about irrigation, all this stuff. If you have any questions, you know, check out a urban farmer. They have a great website doing any kind of irrigation store they may have. I'm not sure what they have here in this area, but they're really great. You can take things in and ask them all kinds of sorts of basic questions. Doing like, I need to convert this to drip irrigation. Can you help me do this? They'll help you with all the components.